Hi everyone, this is Carlo and welcome back to my channel. It's beginning to look a lot like autumn here in London, as you can tell by these poorly CGI'd falling leaves. And today I wanna set up a brand new journal for the fall season with you, starting with the creation of an awesome first spread. In this time of the year near my house you can find these plane trees with the bark peeling away. I was having a walk and I got the inspiration that I needed for my journal. I took some pictures and once at home I gathered together scraps of paper that had a similar color palette. There's some recycled packaging paper, craft paper, a paper bag from the pharmacy, an envelope. We will see what we actually need. Also a sheet of watercolor paper which is thicker and has a rough texture. This will be used for the outer layer of bark. First step, I checked the reference photos. The inner layers of bark have a smoother texture and a stripy pattern, so I prepared two pieces of paper and with a very diluted watercolor I started applying large and irregular brush strokes of a mixture of grey, brown and green. I let this first layer dry and then, using a brush with harder bristles, I've applied streaks of a more concentrated color. Remember that watercolor tends to dry brighter than when it's wet, so if you need a more intense color, don't be shy and apply a second or a third layer until you're satisfied with the result. I took the watercolor paper and after wetting the whole sheet with some water, I started applying this burnt sienna color, gradually increasing the concentration of the pigment, still using plenty of water in the mix. I've added a shade of forest green, a touch of burgundy. Layer by layer, we build up the pattern and color profile of what will be the outer bark. And it's so simple to suggest the wooden pattern with this method, because the watercolor basically does all the job. I let the last layer dry and applied a few more concentrated streaks of burnt sienna. If you don't have a brush with hard bristles, you can use an old toothbrush. With a small piece of sponge, I dabbed the paper with some pigment, just to add a porous effect to the bark. For my autumn journal, I chose to use the refill number 14 by the Travelers Company Japan, which is made of craft color pages. I have now the three different textures of bark that we created, and I start figuring out how I want to compose the spread. I'm gonna proceed ripping by hand some portions of paper and gluing them overlapped to create the inner layer of tree bark. I love compositions that develop in a diagonal way, so that's the direction I'm going to on this one. For the outer layer we need to suggest the idea of a thicker bark, so I'm gonna rip smaller stripy pieces that I'm gonna repatch together on the page. I chose to use a brown ink pad to lightly tap the borders of each piece, just to give them the look of humidity infiltrating through the cracks. Of course we can alternate bigger and smaller pieces to vary the composition, and also choose not to brown some of the borders and keep a white outline. With a pair of scissors I created some scratches on the bark to make it look a bit rougher. And added brown stains with a little sponge. Feel free to add green stains too if you want to create a sort of a moss effect. I thought this wouldn't feel complete without some falling leaves. So I took the pharmacy paper bag and ripped a portion that I will use to create them. I've used some of the leaves I found on the street as stamps to transfer their structures on paper. And I freehand drawn the outline of each leaf. With a tiny pair of scissors, I cut my little leaves and oh my god, aren't they some cutie pies already? Using a diluted watercolor, I simply dabbed burgundy, orange and green shades, keeping it strictly asymmetric, which is what we see in nature. Once they dry, we're gonna stain them with a bit of brown. And with a white gel pen I added some dots here and there to conceptually suggest morning dew. Once I decided where I wanted to place them, I crumpled them gently. And I glued them with a roller glue to the page, only along the central line because I want the borders to stand out from the page and add a three-dimensionality to the composition. For my journal title, I chose to use stamps. I don't mind if things are not aligned, there's so much beauty in imperfection, but in case you need some sort of guide to create a straight line, you can use some masking tape. It's a good alternative instead of tracing a line with pencil and having to erase it after, with the risk of smudging all the ink on the paper. I'm very happy with the final result. I think it's awesome to let nature inspire us with its textures, colors, patterns, and this season is one of the most interesting in this sense. So keep your eyes open because every walk in the park can generate a good journaling idea. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, feel free to like, comment, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm gonna continue this journal that I've just started, so definitely keep an eye on this channel if you wanna see how it goes. This was me, Carlo, and as always, until the next video, take care and see you soon.